Hello and welcome to another edition of Sree's Sunday New York Times Read Along. My name is Neil Parekh and I am the guest host today. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things that you do to make sure people find this show. Thank you so much for everyone watching the replay. You're watching the opening. Most folks will join a few minutes in, so we try and do our hellos and kind of announcements early on. But we thank everyone who joins us, whether you're watching live or later. We are thrilled to be here and to be able to bring you today's show. I'll share that just a few minutes ago, I was figuring out how to share the print edition online using the New York Times replica edition access, and the PDF we have of this special report. We've had a little bit of snow here in Northern Virginia, and that was enough to delay the delivery till about 8:25. I went out to take a picture in of the driveway to show everyone, and lo and behold, the paper was there. So I was certainly very pleased to see that. I mentioned the special report that we have from the New York Times. I wanted to make sure that you saw that. I'll put that on screen for you. It's a really in-depth, long, it took several years to do the reporting. How did the CIA lose a nuclear device here? And by here, they're talking about the Himalayas and a specific mountain called Nanda Devi. You can download the web PDF from our website, digimentors.group/NYT readalong. And you will, if you look there, you will find the show. And we certainly encourage you to do that. The PDF is available for download. We want to say hello to folks watching the show, and then we'll get right into the paper. Let's see who's logged in so far. Remember, if you're watching on Facebook, please make sure to press play on the video so that we know. If you leave a comment, we'll know who you are and where you're watching from. Greetings from wet and snowy East Village, Jonathan Borstein. Thank you, Jonathan. A little bit of cough left from about 2 weeks ago, and just in time for my mom. Good morning, Sudha Parekh from Tampa, Florida, where I assume it's not wet and snowy. Ken Fisher, good morning from a -10 Fahrenheit Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but the cold will be offset by your warmth and goodness, Neil. Wow, that's a lot of pressure there. Ken, but I hope I'll live up to it. Appreciate the kind words. I'll share that I saw it on social media and actually from a text exchange. Our friend Walter Grayson, who is a former guest on the show, was reporting -25, -30 degree temperatures in Minnesota. I think that was with the wind chill. Very, very cold, and certainly thinking about everyone who is unhoused, who are living on the streets. This is an absolute terrible time of year for folks. Doug Levy is watching from the snowless slopes of the Sierra. Thank you, Doug. Doug is joining us at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. We always make a point of noting that. Of course, Ken, it's 7:30 where you are, so we appreciate that as well. Diane Stefani is watching from a snowy Margate, New Jersey. Thank you, Diane. And then Raja Gopalan is watching from New York. Raja, thank you so much. And I appreciated our exchange about the special report about the CIA and the plutonium that they left behind in the Himalayas. Again, if you're joining us late, I want to make sure that you know that you can download a copy of the special report from our website. So if you go there and look for today's show, and you'll see the graphic that includes the cover of this report. You will definitely, I think, enjoy seeing the print edition, the print version of that story. It's of course also online, so you can get that there. But I think there's something really special about print, and that's what we've been celebrating all these years in terms of the layout, the graphic design, the care which the team takes to put the print paper together. Um, so definitely encourage you to check that out. I'm just sharing the show on Twitter real quick. Hard to do multiple things at the same time and keep focused on the screen, but I will do my best. There we go. And now all our folks on Twitter will see it as well. All right, so what we will do is do a quick review of the paper, and then we will check out that special report and see what else is out there. Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar says, beautiful snowy winter wonderland here in New Jersey. And she's watching on YouTube. And Sujana, I'm guessing, by the way, I saw your comment, I think you're watching on the vertical, the YouTube shorts. So one of the things that we're finding is that for folks who are watching on Instagram and YouTube Shorts, you get a full vertical edition, which is really great. And I'm going to lean over here real quick to make sure we're live on Instagram as well. The first thing before we go into the stories, I want to take a moment and horrific shootings. Brown University was bad enough last night as we were late in the evening. Students were sheltering in place. We have friends in Providence. We have a former guest, Naliwe Rooks, who teaches at Providence. My nephew goes to Brown, and just to know that someone walked into a study session, I think it was, or a final exam, and 2 students were killed, 9 injured. I think some of the injured had survived a previous school shooting. It must have been their high school. And then I woke up to the news about the beach attack in Bondi, Australia, Bondi Beach, a Hanukkah celebration where 11 people were killed. The madness is ongoing. It's not enough to say the madness has to stop. I don't think there is any stopping. Frankly, I don't see how, after Columbine, 20 years ago, Sandy Hook didn't make a difference. Las Vegas, huge shootings, nothing happened. So thank you for everyone. We'll hold your thoughts and prayers. And frankly, for all the Republican supporters of the NRA who offer their thoughts and prayers, they can go in the garbage, because that's what it's worth. It isn't worth anything unless we see any kind of actual progress on gun control and access to firearms. Just keep your mouth shut for folks who are offering thoughts and prayers and nothing else. I couldn't say it any stronger than that. Jonathan says it may be up to 12 in Australia and at least 1 more in critical condition. That's one of the notes about looking at the print edition of the New York Times. We won't see that in today's paper. And even the Brown University shooting just barely made it into the last edition that the print editor, Tom Jolly, sent me of the front page last night. So you will have to look online for more extensive coverage. Jonathan also shares that bombs were found in the cars of the alleged perps. And I didn't realize there were more than one perpetrator in Australia. Jonathan, thank you for mentioning that. So let's go ahead and move to the paper, and uh, we will continue our conversation there. I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Muckrack and Graphic History Company. Thank you so much for your support of the show. We really appreciate it. And Muckrack has been with us for a number of years, and we have a graphic history company that has joined us more recently. So we thank you for your support as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we have in the paper today. As we switch gears, I always like looking at what we have for advertising and how the paper is displayed. But before we do that, that little season's greetings envelope from our the newspaper delivery person, I definitely will appreciate him this year for dropping the paper in the snow a few minutes before we went live. I was a little worried, to be honest with you, but I'm glad that we have the paper. We have, so what I thought was interesting is this wraparound ad for the Spirit of New York wrapped in fragrance. Little NYC logo, looks like it almost evokes a token, I think. This is bond number 9. And we're getting a little bit of a glare. Let's see if I turn that light off, it's a little better. New York City is lit. Meet the golden ones. New York chic, Gold Street, and our luxurious signature New York Oud, I guess, online exclusive. So hopefully that doesn't mean that you would smell like New York. I'm sure comedians can have a field day with that. But that was a wraparound ad on the paper. All right, so let's continue. And of course, this is episode 381 of Sree's Sunday New York Times read along. This is the front page, and what you see, the display photo is Rubio views Venezuela as Cuba's crutch. After a pro-Maduro rally in Caracas, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has long sought to cripple or topple the Havana government. That's the display photo. The lead story on the right, again, this was being put together. The earliest edition is about 1 p.m., noon or 1 p.m. on Saturday, so they could send it to the various printing presses around the country that helped the New York Times. But the lead story was how Manosphere stars were freed for U.S. trip. This is about Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, who are in Romania, and they've been accused of various crimes and sexual abuse and similar. I don't think that's the exact. I don't know if that's the exact crime, but that type of criminal activity. But they were freed to come to New York. The shooting attack at Brown University made it above the fold. I'm curious. I'd be interested to see what got bumped from the front page. The shooting attack at Brown kills 2. Campus on lockdown as police seek suspect. And I saw earlier this morning that they did have a person of interest in custody. So that is a bit of a relief. Trump vows to strike at ISIS after 3 deaths. 2 U.S. soldiers and an interpreter were killed in Syria. But my understanding, it wasn't clear how he would retaliate. Below the fold, and I'll open it up so you can kind of see the full picture. That's what the full front page looks like. This picture here is how did the CIA lose a nuclear device here. That's the promo for the special report. To resurrect Fort Lee name, Army, excuse me, Army enlists a forgotten soldier. This is a story, the whole renaming of bases so that they don't honor Confederate heroes. One thing that they've been doing is finding people with the same last name and saying it's named after them. This is Fort Lee in in Kansas, so that his body was in Kansas. I'm trying to see where where Fort Lee is in Virginia. An Army base in Virginia was originally named for Robert E. Lee, but now it's named for a Private Fitz Lee, who was otherwise unknown, an unknown black soldier in the Civil War. TSA shares passengers' data to aid ICE deportation efforts. Down here on the bottom left. And then the reefers at the bottom, the return of a former king, Juan Carlos of Spain. Article about Paparazzo in Italy. City Hall's biggest soccer fan is the mayor. And a few other stories. James Cameron mellows out. And Judy Jupiter's still looking. She once photographed Andy Warhol and Debbie Harry. Now she's focusing on a new generation. So that's what we have on the front page. This is the special report that we are looking forward to taking a look at. How did the CIA lose a nuclear device here? So we will definitely spend time with that. But I just want to give you a quick tour. Arts and leisure is always a fun section this time of year. The best of 2025. And that's going to be across various genres and different forms of art. So we'll maybe take a look at that, or definitely look at that later. The Sunday Opinion, I like the layout of this. It's about the U.S. military, and what they did is they put the headline vertically. You know, can't quite show that. Overmatched on the left, and the headline here: Why the U.S. military needs to reinvent itself. This is by the editorial board, so that's definitely interesting. Sunday Business, the oil man. We're not sure who that is. The oil man who got everything. Harold Hamm as Oklahoma oil tycoon, and Oklahoma oil tycoon, has played a central role in reshaping energy policy by aligning himself with President Trump. Surprise, surprise. Robotics pioneer says the field has lost its way, and changes to the benefit program for older workers who become disabled are put aside. That's a Security article. Sunday Styles is about James Cameron and Avatar. There's a new Avatar movie out, but James Cameron tames his temper is the headline. With next week's release of the latest Avatar, the filmmaker is channeling his inner Navi these days. And then here's an interesting TikTok star, 76, is a Gen Zer at heart. All right, the book review is the best books of 25. So another best of list for your consideration. And the New York Times Magazine. So what is this? Lights, Camera, Feelings on the left in terms of text. Teyana Taylor and the other best actors of the year on how they summon the emotions that move us. Interesting. That should definitely be an interesting story. So let's go ahead and put the paper back together and see if anyone else has checked in. Paula Kiger is saying good morning from Tallahassee. I wish today's news didn't include such sobering incidents in Rhode Island and Australia. Absolutely. And Miriam Berkeley, I didn't catch what the reference was when you said trafficking, I think. So let me, if you don't mind, please clarify. That would be great. And then we have one more comment that I'm looking up. If I can find it. It's Walter Grayson saying essential programming every Sunday. Walter, thank you so much. Sorry, your name and picture are not showing up. Occasionally that happens on LinkedIn, but that's why I checked the feed just to make sure. Okay, and as we're doing that, I'm going to take a much needed drink of something to clear my throat. Try to make that loud enough so you could hear, because you don't want silence on air, right? All right, so let's do this. Instead of going to the front page, I know it's still 8:51. Let's go first to the special story, the special report. How did the CIA lose a nuclear device? Again, if you joined us late, the PDF is available on our website. If you go to Digimentors.group, NYT read along, and look for today's show, you will find the PDF that you can download. Thank you so much to our friends, Tom Jolly, the print editor, and Wayne Camadoy, the art director, for sharing this with us and allowing us to share this with our viewers. So what's interesting about the story, the text at the top, this is Nanda Devi, India's second highest mountain. Its base was described by one famous mountaineer as harder to reach than the North Pole. The basic story apparently was known in India over the last several years, 20, even 40 years or so. But I don't think it was known in the US at all. This this report was several years in the making. There are several interviews that took place a few years ago. A number of the principals have passed away. So they are, luckily they were able to get interviews with them before that happened. And it's a really incredible piece. And I will share the quote that really stands out. You can't leave plutonium by a glacier feeding into the Ganges. You just can't. But that's what the CIA did back in 1965. So we'll take a look at what they did with this report, and I'm going to pull it back. For folks watching on the horizontal view, you'll see this beautiful picture across the bottom. Surrounded by forbidding peaks, Nanda Devi is one of the hardest mountains to climb in the Himalayas. This is where the CIA chose to try and set up a listening post after China had set off some nuclear tests and wanted to see if they could. This is in 1965, before satellites. This is what they thought was their best move. And this article is based on a lot of deep research. A lot of it was opened up when a treasure trove of information was found in a garage in Montana by the person who was helping to organize this mission, if you will. But it was a joint U.S. India mission. The CIA was trying to keep things hush hush. You see here a picture of Captain M.S. Kohli, second from right in the turban. In August '65, he was the highest ranking Indian on the mission that left that device in the mountains. And he was interviewed. He had an extensive interview for this story. So here is a more recent picture, a 2023 picture of Captain Kohli. He was at base camp, and the basic idea is they had this really difficult trip up the mountain, and the weather set in, and he was coordinating with his superiors in the Indian Army, and they made the decision that, okay, we're trying to get this. Now, the reason that there's plutonium, just to back up for a moment, the U.S. had experimented with nuclear-powered devices to power like a listening device in space and in remote climates. The idea was that they were going to set it and forget it, and at the time, their best option was a nuclear-powered device. A little more than Nagasaki, but still fairly small. The problem was that when they made the climb and they hit weather, his order was to come down the mountain as fast as you could, so that they wouldn't die. And what the CIA operatives and the other the Sherpas that were with them and the Indian climbers, they secured the device in some kind of cave-like recess up the mountain, and then got down as fast as they could. How do you think that ended? Right? I mean, that's the whole point of the story. There's this picture here is of Jim McCarthy, the last surviving American climber on the mission, blames the device for his cancer diagnosis in 1971. Now, one of the things that we found that they found, the New York Times, Jeffrey Gettleman and Hari Kumar, the people on this mission were not told exactly what they were dealing with. They were told that the device was fully shielded and that they didn't have to worry about the plutonium. The Sherpas actually would fight with each other, argue, if you will, on who got to carry it because it was warm and it was giving off heat, and they would actually sleep with it, if you can imagine that. This is a picture of the group. This is in July 1965. This is where the CIA flew the climbing team to Mount McKinley in Alaska to practice for this mission. And actually, the quote that I think is the best quote is up here. You can't leave plutonium in a glacier feeding into the Ganges. So they actually did not know what they were dealing with. So they went up, they tied up the device, and then they came down, and they knew, okay. And then a few days later, the storm set in. This is like September, so they couldn't go back up right away. They went back in the spring, figuring, okay, we'll go get it now, and they couldn't find it. They launched multiple missions to recover the device. They could not find it. It disappeared. The side of the mountain where they had secured it was no longer there. Here's a description of what powered the device. It was a portable nuclear generator, and it was the most efficient way to keep a device running in inhospitable conditions. This is what it looks like in reality. The big concern is that the CIA has not taken ownership of this. They have denied any involvement. This has come up in Indian politics for several years. It's in the 70s, I think, was the first report. And interestingly enough, there's this picture of Morarji Desai, who was the Prime Minister of India in 1978 after Indira Gandhi, visiting with Jimmy Carter. And they say that among the other issues they discussed in a private session, they discussed this this Himalayan situation. And Morarji Desai actually spoke in Parliament about it and did not blame the U.S. Just said we have this situation and but we've determined it's not a problem. And Jimmy Carter apparently thanked him for not attacking the U.S., which would have been very easy to do. The big concern, and you see this beautiful picture here. This is the banks of the Ganges in Benares, India. The concern is that if the plutonium somehow leaks, if there's some kind of an issue, it's the headwaters of the Ganges are up in the Himalayas. It could impact this incredibly sacred the river itself, not just the site. The other concern is that if the heat is giving off from the device, is it causing more avalanches? Is it causing more problems with the mountain? Has there been an increase in cancer rates? They said that they did not know what the health status is of the Sherpas that hugged the device for warmth, whether they developed cancer or not. But that's the full story. And what's interesting, if you look at the the wraparound cover, I'll open that up for you as best I can. This is what they have as the cover page. You can see on the horizontal view really well, and I'll show you for folks watching vertically. This is what it looks like in terms of the full view. So it's an incredible story, very detailed. And one of the things, one of the viewers that emailed in said that this would be a great opportunity for a joint U.S., China, India mission to try and recover this device. And that certainly would be incredible if we saw that happening. But this report, it's beyond the purview of the report to suggest something like that. If the editorial page picks up the story and decides to comment on it or suggest something, then that's a possibility. But really, I think Jeffrey Gettleman and Hari Kumar did their job in exposing the story and sharing it with us so that we have a little better understanding of what's going on. A couple of comments that have come in. John Lee says yikes, and yikes is definitely a good way of putting it. This is, how did the CIA lose a nuclear device here, right? And what a beautiful photo, by the way. I mean, just take a moment. This photo could be used for anything, but of the forbidding mountain, but then the sun hitting the top of the peak like that. Let me give a shout out. That's Atul Lok for the New York Times did that picture. Certainly appreciate that. And Jay Palaki, Jay, good to see you. I think it's been a while since I've seen a comment from you, but wow, what a story. And indeed, it is an incredible story. And yes, my mom is noting that Moraji Desai once visited our house in Hastings-on-Hudson. I'm guessing it was like 81 or 82. He was likely out of office at that point, but he did he addressed some kind of gathering in our backyard. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, so I don't remember the details. But that is the story, the special report, and I definitely encourage you to check it out when you get a chance. Okay, so now with that covered, let's see. Let's go back to the front page and see what we have in the A section of the paper. And again, as a reminder, the PDF of that Indian story is available on our website. I should note that Digimentors is produced, the New York Times Read Along is produced by Digimentors in partnership with Scroll and Scroll Global, one of India's most important independent websites. Thank you to Scroll for your partnership on this project. Okay, so with that, let's see. Let's encourage people to let us know where you're watching from again if you joined us late. And if you did join us late and you missed the conversation around this special report, as soon as we're off the air, you'll be able to find the live shows on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and our Digimentors website. You'll be able to watch it from the very beginning. Okay, so for the New York Times, the A1, we went over the front page earlier. Let's take a look at what else is in the paper. I always like paying attention to A2 and A3, the story behind the story inside the Times. They read it all, but just 10 books make the cut. This is Crafting the Book Review's annual list, involves politicking and every once in a while, a rare consensus. I am looking forward, I'm hoping they do a story behind the story about the India, the CIA plutonium Nanda Devi story. I am looking forward to seeing that. The Dateline, always like pointing out where the New York Times is reporting from. This week, Westonport, Maryland. Campbell Robertson reported from Allegheny County, Maryland, where spring flooding caused an estimated $33.7 million in damage, but FEMA has twice denied requests. And what's interesting for federal assistance, and that is definitely Trump country. Paris, Zachary Small visited a theater on the back streets of Paris where scenes from Claire Obscure Expedition 33, a role-playing video game, were filmed. And then there's a story based out of Kenya and then out of Thailand as well. So some good international reporting. There's a wordplay column today, tips for today's crossword puzzle. And then the international section. So we have, interesting, I did not, I saw there was a bid to return for Juan Carlos, but I didn't know the history. Money, Sex, and Elephant Hunting, the Fall of Juan Carlos. The former king, Juan Carlos of Spain, arriving at the funeral of Prince Karim al-Husseini, the Aga Khan IV, in Lisbon in February, his son, King Philippe, at the Royal Palace in Madrid in January, and Juan Carlos left, then a prince, with the dictator Francisco Franco in 1969. So some historical photos there. Let's see, what else do we have? War protests sinks career of Russian comedian. Belarus frees 123 prisoners as the U.S. eases sanctions. And then this article, the global profile of Rino Barilari. That's an Italian paparazzo who himself now is the target of the subject of photographs. So that's interesting. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have this full page ad for Eli Lilly. Alzheimer's means good days and bad days. Absolutely terrible disease that people have to deal with. We have several comments that have come in. Let's see what people are saying. And yes, Jay says it has been a long time, but we're glad to have you back, Jay. Good to be back to tuning to my favorite Sunday morning program. I'm gonna frame that quote, Jay. Thank you very much. Rose Horowitz saying, "Good morning, fascinating story. Terrible news about Brown University and an attack on the first day of Hanukkah in Australia." Absolutely, Rose. We spoke about that earlier at the top of the show. The shooting on Sunday is the latest in a series of anti-Semitic attacks in Australia that intensified last year. The violence has unnerved many in the country, which has the world's largest concentration of Holocaust survivors after Israel. Arsonists last year targeted a Jewish business and a synagogue, prompting calls for greater accountability. Thank you, Rose. Thank you for sharing that. Walter says, watching from the Twin Cities, sub-zero morning in Minnesota. I always wonder about the stories that New York Times misses. The CIA story shows the global reach, but how deep is the coverage over time and across major topics? That's a very good question, Walter. And one of the things that I know that I've observed in terms of the New York Times coverage, it seems to have improved maybe, but for the longest time, most of the coverage about India, at least, and I extrapolated that this is probably true for other regions of the world, definitely lean toward the Orientalist, where I still remember how many times we saw articles about women washing, focusing on India, women washing clothes on the rocks by the river, and temples where people worshipped monkeys and that type of thing. It's mostly gotten better, I think, over time, but I don't know what that the longer term analysis would show. So that's always a good question to consider, and always worth looking at the coverage from that perspective. Here's an interesting article, the backstory, how a U.S. firm spirited Machado out of Venezuela to get her Nobel. What was interesting was that it was her daughter that actually accepted the award, but then um, Maria Machado, appeared at a news conference later in the day. From a graphic design perspective, and if you're just reading casually and not paying attention, it almost looks like that's an article on the right hand side, but it does say advertisement at the top, but with the text and a couple of photos, and then a reminder at the bottom. This advertising supplement is produced by Royal Commission for Riyadh City and did not involve the reporting editorial staff of the New York Times. I think that's interesting because usually you don't need to have those two types of disclaimers on an ad because it's obvious. But in this case, it's not necessarily obvious. I mean, you can kind of tell, but a casual viewer might miss that. Hence the very explicit disclaimer at the bottom. What else do we have? Hawkish Rubio views Venezuela as avenue to deal blow to Cuba. That was on the front page. And then this ad, which is interesting, Function, Living to 100. It looks like it's an article by several doctors, co-founders of Function. An estimated 40% of deaths under 75 years old are preventable. First sign of heart disease is often a heart attack. And then it goes on, less healthcare, more healthy years. What makes up the standard of health? Interesting. That's a full page ad to make that point. All right, so we have the national story here where birds are giving Yelp reviews of humans. Audio gear and AI help capture clues about habitat health. This is more in their series on environmental stories. It's a dining story with less steak available at higher cost. Restaurants are being caught in the middle. This is about Eric Adams, former mayor of New York, or soon to be former mayor, I think. Regrets, no, but grievances. Adams has more than a few. I'm not sure when inauguration is. I don't think Mamdani has been is in office yet, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And keeping an eye on the comments. Thank you, Walter, saying it was a brilliant insight on Orientalism in the New York Times. It's also possible, Walter, that I wrote about this 20 years ago when I was working with News India Times as a reporter. I'd have to dig through archives to see if I did, but it is possible. I know it's something that I had talked about and thought about for a long time. Jay says, yes, she's very intrigued by Machado's journey to the Nobel ceremony. All right, let's see. Excuse me. TSA shares flyers data to aid ICE deportation efforts. I heard a story on NPR about how various databases are being used by the Trump administration to connect immigration status to social security numbers and other databases. In particular, one person, I think it was in Texas, was sent a letter erroneously saying that they would be taken off the voter rolls because they were not a citizen. They were actually a naturalized citizen. And that is certainly, he checked his registration status after getting this letter and in fact had been removed. This is an article about one of Times Square's last dive bars. It won't go without a fight on the right-hand side. This is a big story about the Tate brothers. Manosphere stars accused in Romania went free for U.S. trip. Support from Trump administration officials played a key role in order to let Andrew and Tristan Tate travel, a Times investigation found. And as we continue to flip for the outside of New York sports, it comes in tucked into the A-book, just a few pages. But here's an interesting article. For 2 hours, soccer game offers Palestinians a rarity, joy. And so several football-related stories. And then you get to the obits. Arthur Carter, 93, the founder of a cheeky newspaper, is dead. Mr. Carter seated in 1968 with Roger Berlin Center and Sanford Weill. The three are partners in a financial services firm. Doesn't mention the paper over here. The year he started, the New York Observer, a maypole of Manhattan gossip and intrigue, according to the media critic David Carr from the New York Times. He also bought control of the nation in 1985. And then here's one, Joseph Byrd, pioneer whose band rattled acid rock, dies at 87. The band, the United States of America, was the name of the band. Okay, so that's going to take us through the end of, and then the New York section, just a few pages for folks outside New York. All right, so let's take a look at what we have. We have about 15 minutes left in the show. Set that aside. And again, thank you everyone for being part of our New York Times Read Along family. We appreciate all of your support and all of your encouragement over the years. This is the 10th year we're doing the show live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Of course, Sree Sreenivasan is the host. I am the executive producer and occasional guest host when Sree is not available. One of the things that I like about being able to produce the show using StreamYard, you can see my name on the screen, that it's Neil Parekh. When I used to do his Sree's Facebook account, I used to go live on his account, and I'd have to constantly remind folks that it was Neil, not Sree, doing the show. Hopefully, I don't have to do that as frequently with this new, with not so much new. It's been 5 years now, but with the new format. So the best of 2025 arts and leisure. Let's take a quick look at that. We're going to skip the inside culture and the headliner, just to look at some of the quick overviews. The best of theater, which when the spotlight shines even brighter. So of Gods and Mortals, Will Coleman, Bienvenue, Take Route 88 West, I Like the Nurse's Office. And then this article, Alexis Solowski, Big Gestures, Big Feelings. The best of classical, fresh storytellers really stood out. And so this is a few art forms are as burdened by canons as classical music and opera. The best of dance. I like the graphic design. I like the different colors, the eyeballs, the fingers, really well done. And it does evoke the front page a little bit with the thumbs up and eyeballs. But I like the solid banner across the top. This is about dance and the best of film. Focus on the art, not the business. Sinners by Ryan Coogler is listed as number one. One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, It Was Just an Accident. BLK NWS, Terms and Conditions, not familiar with that. And a few other movies that make that list. Then we see some ads. So working out some ideas. The best of television, An Abundance of Big Ideas, Andor and Pluribus, Common Side Effects, Dying for Sex and Long Story Short, Pee-wee as Himself and The Rehearsal, The Pit and Severance, and several honorable mentions. You can see I spent a little bit more time on movies and TV. I don't know my classical music or my dance very well, I will admit. the best of comedy, late night buzz and hot specials. Picture of after returning from suspension, Jimmy Kimmel was a guest on Stephen Colbert's late night show. And then the back page is the best of art. Or not the back page, almost at the end. Where the starry night shines, enjoy the holidays with us. MoMA, Museum of Modern Art. Love that full page ad. What else do we have? Full page ad for the Cooper Museum. But we also have the best of pop. Let's see if I recognize any of this. Being the father of a 12-year-old, I'm not seeing much. I'm going to have to ask Emily about this. Bad Bunny, certainly. Taylor Swift at 11, Life of a Showgirl. I'll share. Emily was not impressed with Life of a Showgirl. She thought earlier works were much better than that. And her musical tastes have evolved and broadened. I would say that last year, even Spotify Wrapped, if you use that as an example, was almost all Taylor Swift. This year it was dominated by Hamilton, but also had a healthy diversity in terms of music, which I thought was interesting. Just it's another way of kind of seeing how she's growing up. They also do the best of video games. That's interesting. So that is the best of section in this week's paper. We have opinion. We're not going to try and get to all of it, but opinion, Sunday business, Sunday styles. The book review has the best books of 2025, and then the magazine has this piece on actors of the year and how they summon the emotion that moves us. Well, let's spend a few minutes with the opinion section, because I'm sure there are going to be some interesting pieces in there. And Jay says, thank you for doing this past 10 years. Such a delight to follow along as you read the New York Times every Sunday, and also for bringing superb guests on the show. Happy holidays. Thank you, Jay. We really appreciate that. Yes, Sree has been doing this for 10 years. I've been working with him for 8 years on the show. And we took a hiatus over the summer and fall and came back, and we've done, Jay, in case you missed the announcements, we've tightened up the show a bit, so we're doing this in an hour. We are focusing more on the paper, really going back to our roots. We will have a guest on occasionally as warranted, but and when Sree is in town, it's really Sree and I kind of engaging in conversation about the paper. One of the things that we've added is a Spotify. We upload the shows now to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So after the show, people can listen there if they want to. Just a few of the changes that we've instituted. So here is the editorial. Okay, so this is this is interesting right from the beginning. First of all, the layout, the graphic of the eagle with the arrow falling from its talons. And then it's a chapter 1. American military dominance is fading. Our rivals have noticed. I'm curious about what the rest of the editorial is going to show us in terms of additional chapters. There we go, chapter 2. This is the future of war. Something strange happened at the meeting between President Biden and President Xi Jinping of China in a mansion south of San Francisco on November 15th, 2023. And here's a reference to a Pentagon report. A Pentagon report known as the Overmatch Brief reveals that the nation is ill prepared for a major conflict. And this, here's another pull quote at the bottom. Targeted bioweapons, drones that kill on their own. America is scrambling to adapt. Beautifully done in terms of the layout and the graphic design. You don't usually see that. And what I'm seeing is that this is the editorial section, Sunday Opinion, is this one story, this one collection of stories. Chapter 3, America can't make what it needs for its defense. That's the headline there at the bottom, kind of almost at the bottom of the page, but showing shipbuilding and other activities. Fixing the Pentagon's gilded fortress. To understand why the United States is struggling to buy and field the weapons of the future, consider the trouble it had buying the most basic weapon of the past. And a nice graphic of money being poured into the Pentagon. What does 2.7 billion a day in defense spending get us? Inertia and incompetence. The U.S. Chapter 5, the U.S. alone cannot outbuild China. So I had no idea when I opened this up that this was going to be this detailed a report. And I'm sure online it's really incredible. This is a very significant. I don't remember seeing a Sunday opinion section from the editorial board devoted to one topic like this. There's this headline: "We need a new definition of service." The nation has a generational chance to build a military of the future. More of the graphic, the gold, the new balance of power, showing the globe kind of falling off a pedestal, but focused on North America. Trump's approach to defense is inadequate for the challenges the nation faces. This was chapter 7. And then it closes with, "We've been let down, Gen Z on America's future." And that's interesting. It's not a separate chapter, but this looks like it was written by Catherine Miller, a staff editor in opinion, a pollster, and an editorial assistant in opinion. And so they had participants. I guess this is like a focus group. These are the participants. If you had to describe how the U.S. is doing right now in terms of a weather report, what would you say? Cloudy, chance of thunder, level 5 hurricane making its way through the country, sunny with a chance of rain, gloomy, and partly cloudy with a chance of tornadoes. That is interesting. And we're going to stay with that for a moment. For folks who are watching, if you're still with us, I'm curious to see what you think the forecast is, given the current state of American. This is we've been let down on America's future, so it looks like it's pretty broad. So, what is your forecast? What is your, if it's a weather report, what would you say was the weather report for the country? I'd be curious to see what you think. If you're interested in being added to our mailing list, please send me an email, neil@digimentors.group, neil@digimentors.group, and I can add you to our mailing list. And I'll put your comments on the screen in just a moment. We'll close with this. What would you think if you had to describe how the U.S. is doing in terms of a weather report? What would you say? I'm curious to see what folks will think about that. And of course, if you joined us late, you'll be able to watch the show in its entirety in just a few minutes after we finish. As we transition back to the desk, and we're at 9:30, we'll go just a few minutes later. I want to remind folks that the Graphic History of Hip Hop, Volume 2, is coming out in the spring. So sign up for updates at graphichistory.com so you can get that edition when it comes out. It definitely is going to be interesting. Certainly a lot to cover. There was a lot in today's paper, but let's see what we can find in terms of the weather report. What do folks think we're expecting. And I'm looking for the online version of that. But I did not find it. So interesting. Oh, here we go. So let's go to that real quickly. We'll go back to being on screen and sharing this article. What one word describes Gen Z? That's not what I was. This is interesting. They lead with that online. What one word describes Gen Z? But this is we've been let down, Gen Zers on America, and then this is the, if you had to describe America in a weather report, what would you say? So let's see. I see Amy Mehta is joining from Bellevue, Washington. Amy, thank you for joining. We're just about at the end of the show. Excuse me. We will have one more show next week. Sree will be back December 21st for episode 382. That will be our last episode of 2025. And while I'm at the desk, I'll just remind folks that we had a great show. If you're familiar with the mental health work I do, we had a show on Thursday on Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health, post-menopause and mental health. And that was a follow-up to our conversation in November on perimenopause and mental health. So you can find those shows. I'll add those to the links later. But those were definitely interesting shows. I'll say that in terms of the weather report for where I think the country is going, it's much more than cloudy. I think that it's been a one of these freak natural disasters that you see in Hollywood, where you get a blizzard and a tornado and flooding all at the same time. There's just so much going on. And the problem is that there's no end in sight. There's no forecast where it looks like it's going to clear up in the next months or years. The concern, I think, is that we may have it's horrible now. What happens in 2028? We hope that Donald Trump doesn't try and stay in office, but is J.D. Vance able to pick up the mantle, and do we get another 8 years of this? Is there a chance that we can, how long will it take to undo all of this damage? Just like a natural disaster, where homes are ripped apart and the wildfires and flooding, recovery takes a long time. It could take generations to undo what Trump has done. So definitely, understanding that historical context, and I know Walter Grayson has written about this, specifically around his book Illmatic Consequences, the clapback to critical race theory. We should see this in historical context. This is the response to the Obama presidency, and we had Trump for 4 years, and then Biden. But this is all a backlash against the progress that we've made over the last several years. It's just a question of where does that arc of the moral universe go? It bends toward justice. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, as Dr. King said. Does it though? That's what we have to hope will be the case. So again, thank you for joining us. If you joined us late, you can always watch the replay on these same channels on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. and we look forward to seeing you next week. As a reminder, you can get the PDF of the special story on the CIA leaving plutonium on up in the Himalayas from our website. You can download the PDF to see how it's laid out. And again, that quote that I think is great: "You can't leave plutonium by a glacier feeding into the Ganges. You just can't do that." So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us. And and Jonathan, that's great show. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate your support, and it really does mean a lot, this New York Times read along family. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in at subsequent shows. Take care, and bye-bye. Ken Fisher with a thanks, Neil, as well, to close us out.